Will Moss. I am actually the CEO of HBCU Connect and a partner on Trabajamos.com. Welcome to our event. And this evening's event, very excited to present the Microsoft Web Experiences team. Some of the team members have taken the time out of their schedule to share their experiences working for Microsoft, but also to share their experiences and the opportunities on the Web Experiences team. This particular event, we wanted to focus on diversity and specifically the Latinx community. So welcome, bienvenidos, gracias por estar con nosotros. Estamos muy animados para tener ustedes aquí. So welcome, very excited. So let me first of all go over the agenda for the event. This will be recorded. So if anyone has to step out and you miss some part of the event, don't worry. We will record the event and share the recording with you after the event. So no worries about that. So let me quickly go over the agenda. So first of all, I'm going to give a quick welcome, give some background information on, my organization, our partnership with Microsoft, a little bit about myself as well. Then I'm going to introduce our keynote speaker. And this evening, our keynote speaker will be Brian King. After Brian gives sort of the keynote, talks a little bit about his experiences and, WebXT specifically, I may engage Brian with a few questions of my own. But after that, I'm going to introduce you guys to some of the team members that are not only potentially individual contributors, but also managers on the Web Experiences team so that they can talk about their experiences, their path in Microsoft, what they do on their particular teams, and the types of talent that they're looking to hire. So, I'll introduce each team member. After each team member speaks, I'm going to ask the Microsoft team to engage in the chat. If you have questions, this is an interactive event. So while we won't be using video and audio to interact at this particular event, you can engage in the Microsoft Teams chat. So if you have questions to specific speakers, ask those questions in the chat, and I'm going to ask the Microsoft team to keep an eye on the chat to help answer some of those questions. Okay, so after I introduce each team member, so you know who you'll be speaking to this evening, who's on the call, and their story. Then we'll have a panel discussion where I have a few, interesting questions that I would like to ask the Web Experiences team about the Microsoft culture, about some of their experiences working on the team and some of the cool projects that they're working on. So we'll have a panel discussion. But then I'll start to interject some of your questions that you might want to ask to the team. So if you have questions, feel free to ask those questions in the chat once we get to the live Q&A section of the event. And then I'll read off those questions to the Microsoft Web Experiences team that's on the call today. So we'll have that live Q&A. So we'll make sure to get that engagement, get your questions answered. Then we'll pretty much adjourn the event and give you the next steps in case that you like to land an interview. Okay, so that leads into my slide to kind of give you some background on myself and our organization. I get excited because a lot of companies do recruitment events like this, but this is actually not only sort of a branding event so you can get to know Microsoft better, so that you can get to know the Web Experiences team better as well, but this is also an opportunity for you to potentially get hired. We host lots of events like this. Pre-COVID, we were hosting these events physically in different parts of the country, in Dallas and California, in New York, all the way down to Georgia. We were hosting events all over the country, inviting talent to those events. But once COVID hit in March of last year, Microsoft, instead of stopping everything, Microsoft continued to partner with us to host these events virtually and continue to hire folks from these events. So you are in a good place to have an opportunity to potentially interview with Microsoft, to potentially get an offer from Microsoft, and potentially have a life-changing career at Microsoft. So I'm very excited to have you here. Like I said, this is a great opportunity for you, not only to learn more, but potentially land that job. A little bit about my company. We've been working with Microsoft since over the last 8 or 9 years. My company has been around for the last, 21 years or so. Primarily we serve the HBCU audience, which is historically Black colleges and universities, then branched out to African American professionals. And then now we partner with Microsoft because we came up with sort of a function that was working, having these events and hosting these events, inviting talent to the events and folks getting hired, we've also expanded to partner with Trabajamos and launch a new effort to also, bring this platform to the Latinx community. So that is the emphasis of this event. We want to make sure we answer your questions. We want to make sure to get you excited about these opportunities and make sure you take advantage. So that's my little intro on myself. Welcome, you're in the right place. And once again, if you're coming into the event, there's no need to turn on your video or your audio. The only folks we'll have on video will be the Microsoft team. So with that, without further ado, let me introduce our keynote, Brian King. And Brian, if you'd like to take over the presentation, feel free to do so.
I will. Thank you so much, Will, for that great introduction. I'm going to share my screen now, and if you could confirm for me that you can see that.
Sure can. It's up.
Great. So hello, everyone. I'm Brian King. I'm a partner group program manager for the shopping and commerce team within WebXT. And group program manager is Microsoft for what you might have called product manager previously. So I'm delighted to to come and talk to you today and represent the WebXT organization. I wish we were meeting in person, but it's great that there's technology that allows us all to come together today. So a little bit about me. I am originally from Ireland. Since we've all been so travel starved, I thought I'd bring you some pictures of where I'm from. I haven't seen it certainly in a while. The west coast of Ireland there that you're seeing the picture, that's where I'm from. I've been in the US though for more than 20 years. I've been with Microsoft for 25 years. We'll get into that a little bit. One of my favorite hobbies is actually to fly. So you can see me there. I think I'm scowling at the clouds there that day, but it's a fun activity that I get to do every once in a while. But let's talk about Microsoft a bit and sort of why it works for me. First, a little bit of background. My college experience, I did my degrees at the University of Limerick in Ireland, which is sort of like Ireland's MIT, I guess you could say. And my first job experience was running my own custom software company, it wasn't called CRM back then, but it was sort of creating software that helped legal teams to organize their documents and manage their customers. And I did that while I was still in college, and I hired some of my college mates, and that helped us all pay off our college bills. Then I had an opportunity to come and join Microsoft. And I've always loved, aviation and mapping and navigation. And there was this new product that was being created called Virtual Globe. Now, you're all used to using, Google Maps and other products today. Back in this is in the mid 90s. We created a program called Virtual Globe, which was on CD, which sort of tells you how long ago it was. But we had sort of 1.8 million places on a globe, and you could spin it and zoom in, and you could read about the various places. And that was very cutting edge at the time, and I really, really enjoyed that. So I started my career at Microsoft as a developer. I love that icy work. I love coding. I didn't particularly have an aspiration to become a manager, but I just sort of, I guess, tripped into becoming a lead. Maybe I was too bossy or something like that. I don't know what it is, but I became a manager at Microsoft, and my progression through both products and positions at Microsoft continued through dev manager and group manager, which is where you sort of become initially multidisciplinary. And back then we had this concept of product unit managers. We had this idea of sort of an entire product, and we had test and dev and program management and operations, all operating within one unit and under one manager. We moved away from that model later on at Microsoft, and I became a group program manager. So heading up the teams that create the product, that are part of the core team that come up with the ideas for what we should create and how we can create great experiences for our customers. All of that over the years has led me to my current position, which is, as I was saying, is part of the shopping and commerce team as part of WebXT, and I'll explain a bit about what that is too. So I'm currently responsible for our Microsoft shopping products that you'll find as part of our Bing shopping vertical, MSN shopping, a lot of the work that we're doing in Edge, and I'll show you a little bit of this later to give you some context. Products like Microsoft Clarity, which help webmasters manage their websites and create great experiences across the web and across our Bing APIs and syndications. And there's lots of other stuff that's coming that's a little bit of secret and about to ship. So stay tuned and watch our area and sort of see what's coming out. So let's talk a little bit about why Microsoft works for me. And it comes down to the core mission. The mission is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. Now, to some of you, that might sound a little like fluffy marketing speak, but when you really break it down, it speaks to the true nature of the organization, which is much less about selling things directly. And more often, it's about creating technology to help other people and organizations to be successful themselves. So as employees, that transforms us to build things that will cause other people and organizations to do their best work, to be successful. And that's great because ultimately it means that through our customer success, we're successful. Now, as with any organization, it isn't so much what they say, but more so you're truly measured through your actions. And you'll notice that there's kind of a common theme throughout Microsoft in actually thinking about the well-being of others and the planet. So, for example, empowering others, in a sense, it shouldn't come at some of their negative cost, which is why, for example, Microsoft is on track of being carbon negative by 2030. In fact, I was reading that just last year that the Xbox team created the world's first carbon neutral gaming console. In fact, they made over 800,000 of them. Or why that beyond a small amount of drinking water in our Silicon Valley campus, which has about 2,000 employees and is about 600,000 square feet of space, consumes zero water from municipal water supplies. So, or for over the last 30 years, Microsoft employees have donated over $1 billion to charities, in part due to the fact that Microsoft has matched that through their giving campaign. So you can see that it really is about sort of empowering and helping others to achieve more. And I think that we see that in the values that are sort of extolled from our leadership as well. It's also about the culture. So I've seen Microsoft culture change a lot over my time here. Microsoft used to be more of a know-it-all culture, and they expect you to know it all. But the transformation that Satya Nadella brought in when he became our CEO was a fundamental change in the psychology of the company. You've probably all heard of the concept of having a growth mindset, and he describes it really well as sort of moving from a know-it-all culture to a learn-it-all culture, which is great for me because I like to learn new things. When we talk about manager expectations, Microsoft managers, in my opinion, have always been strong, but in recent years, there's been an increased investment in growing managers to be really, really great. And specifically, we have the expectations that you model the behaviors that you want to see, you coach your folks, you're a servant leader, and you care. And that coach and care piece has never been more needed than in this last year with the pandemic. So, and then you have your leadership principles, of course, and the expectations that we have to bring clarity to the problems that you're seeing, bring energy to the innovations that are sort of being created, and accountability, of course. So you promise something, then you should deliver it. Now, the other thing that I like to tell people is that Microsoft isn't really one company. I mean, it is, but it's really 100 companies. So that when you come here, you might decide to work on the next HoloLens, or you might decide in a couple of years after that to move on to something completely new, like as working in Azure or quantum computing. Or you might decide that you want to help consumers interact with the web and how they shop, like we do in shopping and commerce. So there's so many things going on within the company that you really have a really diverse set of things that you can go and look at. And that brings us to WebXT, which at the beginning we said was sort of our organization, and I want you to sort of to get to know and learn more about. So what does WebXT stand for? It stands for Web Experiences and Technology. I think we'll mention that. And it's an organization that is pulling together some of the fundamental services that you require for the web to function well as users. So I've listed a few of these here. You need search, and you need maps, and you need content feeds or services like news and shopping. And the reason we pulled all of these together is that there's a lot of synergy across all of these organizations, and you'll hear that from some of the others that will speak as well today. But possibly more important is that there needs to be more than one provider in these spaces. And if society is to thrive, then we need to make the web work for all consumers to have a great experience, and for that there needs to be competition in these spaces. So if we continue on, some of the other fundamental things within WebXT is that we like to be customer obsessed. So when we're creating some new piece of technology, or we like to start with the customer in the research, and we're not led by what we believe, but we like to be led by what constant flighting and experimentation tells us, which brings me to the quadrant of we're very much data driven. We make our decisions based on what we see from the hypothesis that we create in the experiments that we do. We're very diverse and inclusive. That's an incredibly important dimension. It's an aspect of our culture within Microsoft, and that permeates down through WebXT, and I see that every day. I'm always telling my team that everybody can have any idea, and all voices are and will be heard. And that also extends across Microsoft. So it doesn't matter if I'm working in one area. If I've got a great idea about something that's happening in another area, then I'm open and free to ask that. I'm open and free to move to that team and have them hire me if they're willing to take me on. And we don't create these little fiefdoms. We like to help each other. We like to build on the technology that's being created across Microsoft. So if somebody is creating a piece and a part over here, if I can use that to make my product better, well, then that's just going to help me and to accelerate as well. So fantastic. A couple of quick facts. You're sort of saying, so how big is this WebXT organization? We're about 5,000 employees and growing and hiring, obviously. That's why we're all here. We've over 100 million daily active users. So imagine that. Imagine having products where you have 100 million people coming to use them daily. We make about 8 billion in annual revenue, and a lot of that is through our search and advertising and content things that we do. And we have locations in the US, of course, and also worldwide. So I work with teams here in Beijing and in India and in Cairo, and we have many locations across the world, which is great. Let me talk to you a little bit specifically about Microsoft Shopping here. And there's a little video playing that sort of gives you a sense of what shopping is like in one of our verticals, where here you can see that we're helping users browse into specific categories and learn about the various options that are available to them, and discover ratings and reviews, and ultimately tracking price history to see, hey, is this a good time to buy, or is this a really poor time to buy? To be able to learn and compare across products and sort of helping consumers do that. And today we're doing that in 14 markets, and we're about to add quite many more. We have billions of impressions of ears. We have thousands of product categories, and literally billions of products globally that we serve through these capabilities. Some other things that we're doing within the shopping space, and I realize I have to sort of keep this moving and keep it short. On the left-hand side, for those of you who use Edge, you may have seen lately some new shopping capabilities that have been brought to bear, like, for example, being able to price compare across things when you're looking at a particular site and, oh, we found this cheaper on another site for you, or our coupons capability, and this really drives a sort of, again, a fundamental aspect of being able to make changes in people's lives, which I really love. We only launched this capability of being able to drive coupons back in November, and already we've saved users over $200 million. I mean, when you think about that, and that, for some people that might not make a big difference, sort of if I'm saving them $10 or $20 or $30 in a week, but for some people that could be huge. It's the difference between getting that extra book for my kid going to school, or it could even be a difference of food on the table. So you can really drive change in users' lives at scale. And on the right-hand side there, we saw some of that sort of in action and sort of playing through. So we're really doing some really cool things on Edge, and we have so many new cool things that are coming out that I can't show to you yet, but I'd love to. So maybe we'll have this conversation again in a bit, or come and work for WebXT, specifically in shopping and commerce, and we'll get to work on some of those together. So one of the other products that I wanted to talk about that's happening in the shopping and commerce space is across Microsoft Clarity. So this is where we're actually helping webmasters and enterprises with their websites by allowing them to instrument those websites well. So many of the websites that users come to today are e-commerce sites where we're often being sold things on the web. And webmasters have a hard time actually understanding how their users are using their site or moving through their site, and where they might have problems, like where they may have images that people think that, oh, I could click on this, but I actually can't click on this, or I can't close this window, or this extension is interacting poorly with my site. We launched this a few months ago. We've already seen huge uptake and great media buzz from it. It allows you to do everything from session recordings to seeing heat maps about how people are using the product to gaining insights from that product, and it's super easy to use it. And it works in conjunction with some of the other things that webmasters are using today. So we like to think about that, sort of like, how can we create something that builds on some of the other pieces and parts? And of course, a lot of what we're creating is open source. And Microsoft is actually one of the biggest open source creators now in the industry, which is a great way to sort of give back to the development community. So just giving you a sense of some of the products that we're creating within shopping and commerce within WebXT that are super interesting. So in the end, though, from a WebXT perspective, the end user is our mission. And I started out by saying that we really focus on the customer metrics, and we focus on our customer success as part of those metrics. The WebXT organization, and especially through our search and advertising and personalization that we do in shopping, we're probably one of the biggest AI organizations within Microsoft, and we develop and deploy that globally. So we're always thinking about the many markets that we ship in, and we ship in some of our products in over 100 markets. We're not afraid to explore new ways of working with the user. So we're always thinking about new ways that we can help users or doing business with users. You're seeing some of our latest work out of WebXT if you've been using the Windows Insider stuff, and you're seeing some of the new things that are being developed there, which is really interesting. And that, we work as one team. So ideas that cross search or feeds and browse, they're just an experiment away. We can bring things together. We can bring the better part of product A and product B and see how we can make these work together. And we often reuse areas that we've had a success in and use it on another product as well. And we experiment often to find those nuances, which is great. So who are we hiring? We're hiring software engineers. That's how I started. Data scientists didn't exist as much back when I joined Microsoft, but they do now, and they're incredibly important to us because of all this experimentation that we're doing. Everything that we do, from personalization to recommendations, requires having data scientists to really understand building those ML models and drive our artificial intelligence. Product managers or program managers, as we call them internally, to help really understand that customer need and ideate the great products for our customers, and designers, which of course we want everything to flow well and look beautiful and to interact and have great accessibility. We're constantly looking for great designers as well. We're hiring across many locations. Redmond, which is obviously the core and home of Microsoft Central Campus, the Bay Area, which is also a huge area for us, a new one in Atlanta. And I thought I'd throw it in there. It's not the US, but we also are hiring in our Vancouver location as well, which is in Canada. What are we hiring for? And how will it help us succeed? Well, we're looking for people who are ultimately really product focused and customer obsessed, right? We want people who are really thinking about things from a customer standpoint and how we can create things that will really benefit that customer through their entire journey. It isn't about just a particular feature or this particular feature. It's about how does that feature work throughout the entire life cycle of the engagement with the user. And how can we be doing it better and better for them, and ultimately, forward looking, we want to create the next thing. We want to, when you think about where software was 10 years ago, 5 years ago, even last year, there are always improvements, and some of them are not incremental, some of them are completely stepwise, and we're always forward looking. And then of course we want to have great empathy for our users, and understand that our customers are not all the same. They fall in many different categories, which is why we do a lot of user research to understand the various personalities and personas of our users, and we want to have empathy for them and where they show up in that space. So hopefully that was a useful overview of WebXT and sort of some of the things that we're doing. Some of my colleagues in WebXT will describe some of their areas as well and extend that out. But ultimately, we're hiring, and we hope you'll come and join us. So thanks, Will.
Is it okay if I ask just a couple of follow-up questions?
Absolutely, please do.
So I noticed. So first of all, what location are you working out of?
So I'm working out of the Redmond location. Well, I'm in my home today, aren't we all? But I'm working out of the Redmond location, and we're all working. A lot of us are working from home still at the moment, but we're looking forward to being able to come back into the office and hang out with all our work buddies.
Excellent. And so my next question, I noticed you came in the door as a developer, and so I know we've got a lot of software engineers on the call, a lot of developers on the call, and some data science folks as well. But one thing I noticed when you laid out the different roles that you've had while you've been at Microsoft is that you came in as a developer, but you've had several roles since then. And I'm assuming you've been promoted into different positions as well as, just done different things. So how easy or hard is it to move around and to be promoted there at Microsoft? So what has been your experience there?
Okay, so that's a great question. So first of all, fundamentally, it is actually easy to move around. I mean, we're all technologists. We should recognize that. We all come with our own core skill sets, but for me, it was actually a fairly easy transition. And one of the things that I'll just sort of make you aware of is that moving around within Microsoft is actually easy. If you find a team that you're really interested in and you want to go interview with them, you don't need anybody's permission to do that. You don't even need your manager's permission to do that. You can go and you can interview. Like, unless you're critical and there's something that's about to ship, then if you get a job at another team, they might say, hey, can we hang on to you for like 3 or 4 weeks and just get this thing out the door? But other than that, it's really easy to move around. Now, specifically for me, it was sort of a natural progression because more and more in my role as becoming more of an engineering manager, I was participating more and more in the creation of the product, and I was ideating more in the product. And I shifted from sort of thinking more about the sort of engineering leadership to the product leadership, and that was a personal choice. And I probably made that change, 15 years ago in my career, and I've stuck with that side. So I don't write as much code anymore. I don't write really code for the products at all. I write code in my spare time and like to play with stuff and stay up to speed on technology. But But my core focus as a product manager is innovating for the customer and understanding the customer need and turning that into great products. So hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, so two more quick questions. One,
Sure.
just to give folks context on your current role.
Yes.
What does your team look like? Are you managing a team of program managers, or what does your current team look like? And then I'm going to ask my favorite question after that.
All right. Okay. Can't wait for your favorite question. So yes. So as a group program manager, I lead a team of PMs, which has the structure of program manager leads, which have program managers directly reporting to them. And typically the way we slice things up is that we have program manager leads that are focused on one or more specific areas of ownership. For example, I might have a program manager lead who's focused on all of the shopping things that we're doing within the Edge browser. And so on and so forth, and they all roll up. So I have the honor and opportunity to manage that entire team, and play my role in enabling a great work environment for them, so that they can do their best work and I can get out of the way and let them do it.
Excellent. So my favorite question and my last question for you before we introduce our next speaker is, why do you feel Microsoft is a great place to work for you personally?
Oh yeah, no, love that question. So for me personally, I think it comes back to some of the things I talked about initially, and I kind of snuck them in on that sort of Microsoft mission slide, where I really love the direction that the company is taking in terms of sustainability of the planet, the core values that I see coming from our leadership, the strong culture to innovate and then sort of have that growth mindset, and doing all of that and sort of wanting to better the planet at the same time. So everybody wants to work on things that can make a difference, and at Microsoft, you're working at that scale and you're working on products where you really feel like you can make a difference in the world, and I think that that's incredibly fulfilling.
Excellent. So, hey, Brian, thank you for taking the time out to share and to kind of keynote for us.
Of course. My pleasure.
With that, yeah, appreciate it. So with that, I'm going to introduce the team members that have taken the time out to present as well. So thank you, Brian.
Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
All right. So let me introduce our next speaker. So I'm going to actually share my presentation once again. So if you're ready, Gang Lee, I'd like to introduce you as our next speaker. Gang Lee is a Principal Group Software Engineering Manager within Microsoft Advertising. Gang Lee, if you're ready.
Okay, thanks, Will. So hi, everyone. My name is Gang Lee, and as Will said, I'm a Group Engineering Manager in the Advertising Division in WebXT. I'm very delightful to meet all of you virtually today. Thanks for the technologies we have today. So a little bit about myself. I was born and grew up in China, and Microsoft has always been one of my most favorite company to work for because of the great reputation of the of the passion for technology and customers. My direct interaction with Microsoft started as like a internship back in 2004. Later on that, after my graduation school, I joined Microsoft China as a software engineer in 2005. And my first project in Microsoft was a network simulator, simulating like the cell towers for Windows Mobile. and then I worked in Beijing for about like 5 years, and due to some personal reasons, I decided to relocate to Seattle. Then I have been ever staying like Seattle area, ever since that. During my 6 years of Microsoft journey, I have worked on many different products, include like Windows, Skype, Xbox. I was actually working on HoloLens for like half a year, which was very fun. And then like finally advertising in WebXT. During the whole journey, I really learned a lot. And as I said, I had a lot of fun. So a little bit more about the ads team and the ads division in WebXT. So I joined as team in 2016. Ever since that, I have always been super excited by what's happening day to day around me. I'm going to share some of them. First thing is the rapid growth of the ads business. Basically, before COVID-19, we have kept like double-digit growth, and which actually opens up a lot of opportunities and challenges. I personally like working in something rapidly grows because every day you got something new. And then in order to support and sustain the high speed growth, we have also built like large scale AI powered systems to make sure the ads can efficiently be managed and also delivered, which can bring success to the end users who are using a bunch of Microsoft product where we're showing ads, as well as to the advertiser and eventually to Microsoft. So in the meantime, we have also had a lot of collaboration with other teams, with WebXT and Microsoft to grow the ads business surface on multiple Microsoft products, in addition to Bing, like MSN, and also like other Outlook and Windows. So, inside the engineering team, we have also encouraged the smart engineers to try out all the cutting edge technologies. I think Brian also mentioned like WebXT is probably one of the division that uses heavily uses like all the AI and other like cutting edge stuff. And so that we can bring more efficiency to the system. And also we have been continuously improving the development and the release tools so that our engineers could always be as productive as possible to deliver like values and features to our customers. Regarding to the people in the team, I wanted to quote like, everybody is always trying to help and collaborate with everyone. That is really like the atmosphere I really love to be part of. Particularly, this has been super essential to keep everyone, in good shape and also still being successful in the last year due to the pandemic. Overall, I would say we are in a great team driven by the rapid business growth, and I have been inspired by the energy and dedication from the team all the time. Last but not least, I want to because I saw some people are asking asking Brian that question. Actually, I like that. About like why we have been staying with the company for so long. Actually, that is one of the most frequently asked questions during interviews by the candidates. So I think Brian has to talk a lot of great points about that topic regarding to like our mission, our culture, and a lot of like great things happening within the company. I definitely would echo all of them. On top of that, I also want to say, like, as a company, we have our corporate value, who are respect, integrity, and accountability, which I personally believe a lot of them. And I do see everybody trying to exercise that every day. I feel really like happy to be part of that and feel really being empowered that we can really do like the right thing for the customers and the business. But last but not least, I want to wrap up my conversation by like echoing what Brian mentioned, like Microsoft, like not only a one company, but like 100 company. Because my personal experience has been like I was able to work on multiple Microsoft products due to our broad like a product portfolio. So that is actually a very unique experience, I personally feel, because every time I change products, I learn a lot of new things, like on business, on technology, on engineering, on everything. So I personally feel refreshed and every single time, and I personally really appreciate that experience. So that's all I have. And again, thanks for everyone for joining. Yeah, I'm gonna hand back to Will.
Yeah, I've definitely got some follow-up questions for you because I'm curious about, you mentioned, working on the Microsoft Ads product. And when you first started working on that product, did you come in as an engineer, a software engineer?
Yes, I was a software engineer, and then after a couple of years, I become like a software engineer lead, then become software engineer manager, and that's basically my path so far.
So I want to ask sort of a technical question. So, so what makes these events fun for me a lot of times is I also have a software engineering background, right? So I've seen AI or artificial intelligence become more and more important in different businesses. So you coming in as a software engineer on Microsoft Ads and then seeing Microsoft advertising go into using more and more artificial intelligence, what was that like as a software engineer to learn and be a part of that transformation into more and more usage of AI?
That's actually a great question. I think, great question. Yes. So I think, I mean, initially we came in as like a software engineer, and we are good at like writing code, right? Solving those kind of solving system problems. So for that thing, I actually, there was like a couple months I have to, read a lot of books of statistics and understand how this big data works, and also took a lot of training about like all this model, that model, this parameter, that parameter, and sit with my data scientist and basically hang out with those set of people all the time, and some Microsoft researcher folks to understand like the algorithm and the core AI model they're building. Yeah, it's just if I look back, I feel it's very overwhelming, but I definitely get a different new angle about like how I solve the problem, rather than like trying to solve everything with like a finite state machines like a software engineer. But now I know, hey, there's actually a different new way to solve a super complicated problem using those models, and use neural networks. So that was actually pretty fun. Yeah, just hopefully that gives you a sense about that.
Yeah,
it was fun.
I find that super interesting, and the fact that Microsoft supported you as you kind of ramped up on AI.
Of course, learning is a key aspect that Microsoft has been reinforcing for every person, every employee in our company. I think that is actually we actually support everybody in learning, based on the product needs, business needs, and career needs.
Excellent. So what does your team look like? So you're a software engineering team manager or principal group software engineering manager. What kind of software engineers do you have on your team, and what do they work on?
So that's a great question. I'm managing a team, and I got like I got software software engineer managers, or sometimes we call them software engineer leads, and reporting to me, and they're also people managers. So basically, every one of them is managing like a couple of people, and who are actually software engineers. Okay. So normally, like I mean, currently the team I'm managing, I mean, we actually manage a bunch of applications, like web applications, mobile applications for Microsoft advertising. So basically, I like divide and conquer. Basically, like, so one of the leads could own could own the iOS application, the other lead on Android application, and then, but for the engineers, really like we are trying to have a open we are trying to like have the open and equal opportunity for everybody. So like we have, let's say, because some engineers might want to work on web app, some engineers might want to work on like a mobile app, and we could just open all these opportunity to everybody, regardless like who they're reporting to. So I think we have that flexibility. And then for the technology we're using, my team is more, the entire ads team has all the portfolios from like a front end to back end to AI. And particularly for my team, we are more focusing on the user experience end. So we use like a JavaScript, we use React, and we use all these like a front end technologies to build experience for the customers.
Excellent, excellent. So a couple of quick last questions. What location do you work out of?
I am in actually I am in the Redmond location. Yes, the same as Brett.
Excellent. And then my last question is, what is it that you like most about working for Microsoft for you personally?
I think I try to address that question. On top of all the company mission and value, which I personally believe in a lot, as I said, I personally really like, and in addition to working with smart people for sure, and I personally like, I really enjoy this, broad product portfolio, so that I have all kinds of, selection. Let's say, someday if I'm bored with the product I'm working on, or I want to learn something new, what's happening in the industry, I got a convenience to just transfer within the company. And as the brand said, that's super easy. And then I just get myself open up to those kind of new opportunities and technologies to continue to grow myself.
Love it, love it. Hey, so thank you, Gang Lee. I really appreciate you taking the time out to share your experiences, to talk about what you do. And if you'll just hang on for our panel discussion, we'll bring you back on.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Will.
Yep, thank you. So if anybody has any questions for Brian or for Gang Lee, feel free to ask questions in the chat. But with that, I'm going to introduce our next speaker. So our next speaker is Michael Narayan. Michael's a principal software engineer within Microsoft Maps and Geospatial. So Michael, if you're ready.
Hey there, thank you, Will. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the event. My name is Michael Narayan. As Will said, I'm a principal software engineer or architect with Microsoft Maps and Geospatial. We'll get a little bit into that. I was born in India, but my parents immigrated to Canada when I was pretty young. So I grew up there, went to school there, Waterloo, just outside of Toronto, which is where I lived for most of my young life. I actually didn't go straight to Microsoft or even to technology right out of school. I had a detour into finance for about 8 years. Traded derivatives before that was a thing. Lots of math. But a bunch of my engineering class had moved to Microsoft, and they were constantly pinging me saying, hey, you should come out here and come talk to us. And eventually I got sick of the finance life and decided I was going to try that instead because I loved I've loved software since I was like a little kid. And so I joined a team in Windows working in DirectX, which is sort of the suite of gaming technologies for Windows. I wrote basically the session management layer for the networking product Direct Play. I was used in a bunch of games. That thing would eventually got ported to Xbox and ran a bunch of the products there. I moved from there to search when Microsoft decided to build algorithmic search in-house. So the very early days, I was the first lead for indexing, basically crawling the web, building the index, parsing all the content, selecting the pages to be that we wanted to crawl out of the billions that we knew about. That was a very challenging job. And at the time, of course, there were only sort of 3 companies working in problems of this scale, right? Google, Yahoo at the time, and ourselves. So it was, it was an opportunity to sort of see something that you just couldn't see anywhere else, really. And I've sort of been with, the search family kind of ever since. I've moved around within search. I worked on local. Worked on Bing Mobile when that was when we spun that up. Came back, we merged with Maps. I worked on Cortana, especially the early versions of that, which was Microsoft's personal digital assistant. It had several capabilities around sort of multi-turn, and those were focused on sort of location-aware things like searches for restaurants and so on. And so my team was very heavily involved in that. We moved back into core search. We kind of split off into sort of focused on maps. I switched from basically being an engineering manager with leads reporting to me to an IC architect role as part of that transition. I've actually kind of flipped back and forth. So I've had, until about 9 months ago, as again running another large team, and now I'm back to being an IC. So I tend to work on sort of the big problems that sort of span across my organization. The Maps org is several hundred people, and we interact with obviously our own team, but several other products as well. The Maps team owns 2 major products: Bing Maps, which is sort of our consumer mapping fixed experience. There's it's the map that Bing uses for all of its location stuff. It has a set of APIs, and then there's the Azure Maps product, which is it's part of Azure, but our team owns it, and that's the enterprise-facing mapping product. And so, between those 2 things, we also power mapping and geospatial needs across the company. So Office, Power BI, LinkedIn, Teams, like any experience that requires knowledge about geospatial interactions with it. Is kind of run on our technology. The other big contribution that we have is location understanding. So inquiries, documents, conversational experiences. Whenever there's a location mentioned, so if you're searching for restaurants in downtown Seattle or the weather in Atlanta, identifying those locations and resolving them for other parts of the Bing stack to use sits with us. Just because it's sort of extremely hard problem for which we have a lot of domain knowledge. We extensively use AI and machine learning. In the process of building maps, we have access to our own and third-party aerial and satellite imagery. We use that to extract out geographic features, buildings, roads, and so on. We use that internally. We also contribute some of that information back to the open data community, so that gets broad distribution. I mentioned the natural language work that we do for understanding. There's obviously a bunch of classification work, ranking, data conflation. All these are machine learning problems that we have. There's a heavy algorithmic use in terms of routing, getting from point A to point B. Like there are many different ways to do it with different modalities of travel. And often for the enterprise side, we have constraints. You can imagine if you were a company with a fleet of delivery trucks that you're trying to make a bunch of deliveries, and your customers can only accept deliveries at certain times because maybe they're a restaurant, they don't want to, they don't want you showing up when they're in the middle of the dinner service, right? Or they need to be there in the morning, and maybe traffic is particularly bad in one direction, morning rush hour versus evening rush hour, and so how do you sort of account for? So we have a bunch of stuff in house that just solve problems that are sort of hard. That would be hard for most people to get at, and our goal is to sort of solve them generally, and then bring those solutions to our customers. I think there's so much I could talk about. Let me maybe pause there, and maybe Will, if you have some questions.
Sure. Yeah, actually, you said a couple of things that piqued my interest on behalf of the candidates that I think they might find interesting as well. So you mentioned you were in the finance industry, and then you came over to Microsoft and you started working on DirectX.
Yep.
So what was it like coming up to speed from a coding perspective? Because I imagine you came on as a software.
Yeah.
What was that? What was that like?
I was super duper rusty. But I had been just like prior to going to finance, I was very heavily into the internal, like Waterloo's a co-op school, and so in my co-op turns, I'd worked on everything from sort of third party, like just sort of application stuff, to compilers,
What languages were you using?
Sorry.
What software languages were you using?
At the time, it was all C. So like C++ was not even a thing at that point.
Gotcha.
So it was C and then like assembler.
Yep.
So like I said, I grew up with computers, and I've been like tinkering with stuff. I built computers on my own.
Nice.
From sort of the chip level. Getting back into it, it was definitely a ramp up, like a couple of months, and I certainly had to go brush up on my programming skills before I interviewed.
Nice.
But yeah, but like I think, and I've seen some questions in the chat, like, if you're Java, Python, like we are a C++, C# shop, very heavily, but we're not testing you on usually we're not testing you on like how well do you know the internals of something. It's really can you solve a problem. And Microsoft does have a lot of support and educational to get people up to speed. There were some questions about Azure. We don't expect people, for the most part, unless you come in at a senior level, like working on an Azure product. Like we will get you through boot camp and stuff like that.
So another interesting thing that you mentioned, especially for a lot of people that I think are tuned in, candidates, but there's something I faced as well, and that was I came into the corporate America as a software engineer, but I was pretty good with people and working with teams, and I was put on the fast track to become a manager. But I was afraid and didn't want to be a manager. I wanted to go the technical route for promotion because I felt if I became a manager, I wouldn't be able to stay technical. But I noticed that you've changed from being a people manager or team manager to also going back into an IC role. So what is it about the Microsoft culture that allows you to do that?
I think there's a path to extremely senior levels at the company for individual contributors. I think traditionally at other firms, and I'm not, our big competitors are maybe more similar to us, but traditionally in the past, the way you got promoted was you became a manager and you kind of, you manage bigger and bigger teams sort of thing, right? Whereas Microsoft, almost from the beginning, has had this path for individual contributors to become, to be promoted. Brian is a partner, right? There's a partner IC, and on the IC track from there, you just, distinguished engineer and then technical fellow. And like these are equivalent to like, the top end VPs, right? Yep. So there is that potential for ICs, but you need to be like, extremely, technically competent. And these are like these will be world-class, individuals.
Nice. And then, so for you, when you went to be more in a management role, what was it like coming back to being an individual contributor? Is that something that you wanted to do? Or there were some problems that needed to be solved that you felt, were a fit for your skills, or how did that work?
I enjoyed both roles, to be frank. And I think there are certain, in my current role, there's sort of more immediate problems that are better tackled by an IC. And I just happen to have the right sort of scope and visibility into aspects of the organization, but I needed to be a kind of focus on it, which meant I wouldn't be able to do justice to managing a team at the time. But then my manager's constantly like, "Hey, I have this need. Can you come do this?" And so I'm fine, right? It's totally, I think it's good to have, people that have some flexibility and can play both roles.
Excellent. And so, what location do you work out of currently?
I'm in Bellevue, which is basically Redmond. I live in Seattle, so I have my 20-minute commute every day, but not right now, obviously.
So let me ask you my favorite question of the day, and that is, what is it for you personally that you like most about working for Microsoft?
So this is a good question. Like, so there's and I maybe have a slightly different take on it than something. And I've been sort of in the sort of the web technologies thing for a while, and I see sort of this, I'm going to call it struggles, but I see where our competitors are. And I feel like and I felt this from sort of the beginning of working at Microsoft. Like, I feel like Microsoft is always trying to, like, we sell stuff, right? We're not selling people, right? Our audience is not the product, right? That we're all selling to other people, and as a result, I feel like there isn't this pressure to do sort of unnatural things.
Okay.
I think we take privacy in particular extremely seriously. The projects I work on tend to have often big privacy implications, and so like we're constantly talking to our privacy gurus, not as a how do I break the rules here, right?
Right.
But like, here's an approach. I want to make sure that the thing that we're doing is the right thing, and that we're not accidentally going to be exposing stuff, right?
Yep.
So from the design stage, like, we want to be building privacy into our products. And that's also the enterprise trust, the proposition that we bring to our enterprise, right? It's like, hey, we do this work so that you don't need to worry about it, right? But that means that we have to do that, all the legwork behind the scenes, right? So I think, for a company of this size, I feel like that's a great strength for us.
Yeah, that says a lot about the Microsoft culture, I think. And so, yeah, I appreciate you taking the time out to share your experiences. So to all the candidates that are on, like I said, if you have questions, please ask questions in the chat. So Michael, you might get some questions in the chat, but if you'll hang on, we'll do our panel discussion after our next two speakers.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks,
Yep. So let me introduce our next speaker, and I'll stop the spotlight on Michael. Okay, so our next speaker is Joe V. Lee. So Joe V, if you're ready.
Yeah, thanks, Will. I'm the principal group engineer manager in the WebXT platform. I just realized that as the most junior panel discussion people here, 16 years, 20 plus years. I'm only 13 years, so I will deliver more information from the from my perspective. Yeah. So I originally from China. I have some college experience. I go through all the education process. I get my PhD from Nanyang Technological University in Singapore, from the computer and the network security. I work with in the Chinese Academy of Sciences as the Institute of Computing Technology. I get my master, and then all the way I go to Indiana University. I do the STEAM on the postdoc, also for the computer and networking security. My first role in Microsoft is really I try to be a researcher. That's my goal. That's also I want to work in the industry. So at that time I started with ISDE, and then ISDE inside MSR, a Microsoft Research. And then finally we realized that we want to invent something new. At that time, we call it the project is the Red Dog. You may heard about that, you may not heard about that, but you really heard about this Windows area, the great cloud computing platform there. We invented that from 50 people, and then at that time, I'm lucky to be there. Yeah. After that, we think a lot about on that front, when in the very beginning, we think about a lot about the security stuff, but finally we realized that cloud computing is really not about security, it's about computing. So at that time, I decided to discard the R, become SDE, and then work on the billing stuff, how to collect the money for the cloud computing platform. After 4 years there, when Red Dog becomes area, I joined the Bing in 2011, and then started from engineer there, step by step. First, become an area leader on some fundamental pieces. And then after that, become a tech lead on some big projects. After that, I become the engineer manager on some platform services. Finally, team have to grow to meet the challenges on these areas. I become a principal growth manager. Research associate. This title is belong to my postdoc life. So, for me, there's only A and B. So I work on the area and Bing. That's it. If you see the WebXT platform, I think the Brian, Gong, and Michael put a statement. Describe the customer scenarios. Platform pieces, we build the service to help them to achieve the success. So, for example, we provide the deep learning inference services to help them to materialize the AI ideas. We provide the object store to help them store some internal data so that they can make the ranking or the sorting more relevant. And also, most critically, if you think the WebXT platform narrow down to my team, my team co-index 0. Basically, if you see Bing.com, there's no results. You can realize that I'm the guy who is working on the computer with my colleague, trying to diagnose, try to mitigate. So that's we call a set panda scenarios. I think that's the thing you can think of me. By scale, if you think index serve is there's tens of thousands machines we are tackling. The most, if you see all the scenarios, all the startup there, they're no such scale. You will hit different engineering problems you cannot imagine. So I want to further in the Excel in the past several years, I want to share two stories. One story is really we focus so much for the fundamentals. I share memory allocation. We work with them to create a new memory allocation algorithm, so that based on the scenario we are working, so that we work soldier by soldier with them and try to see what's the best memory allocation strategy. Finally, we lower down our latency, and by lowering the latency, meaning that we give back a lot of cost in our serving stack. And then after that, this is become a really tremendous successful story because the memory allocation library has extensively used by other Microsoft services, including Office, including SQL, including multiple area services. Even I think the MSR, the peer team, is trying to working with the Windows team to see whether we can replace that. Satya send us a signal. You guys need to think about how to replace the old memory locator on the Windows. So that's meaning that if you, memory location, if you think about that, out to your school, you know there's a lot of memory algorithms, but you don't realize that small thing is really have a huge impact. So Microsoft can help you materialize that. The second thing I want to share is the deep learning. In the last 3 years, we have the whole stack, from the data collection to training to inference to integration, integrating with the serving stack. Our goal is really put the serving as a deep learning centric, meaning that all the queries, for now, if you go to the bing.com, you search a query, you will hitting a lot of GPU serving your query. You should feel proud of that. We feel proud of that because we give with the deep learning, we guess your real intention and then give you most relevant results. So from that viewpoint, is the platform you think that is really we try to build the fundamentals, and then the scenarios like shopping, like commerce, like ads, like maps, all other WebXT scenarios, they can reach into the platform saying, oh, I want to build a scenario. How can I collect all the building pieces and then put them together and ship it? So at a lot of time, I have been really excited to see that, oh, this small thing is really have a bigger business metrics moving. So that's the story I wanted to story I can share. With that, I finish my conversation for myself. Yeah.
Thank you. So let me ask the quick question. So I'm keeping an eye on time. So for all of our candidates, if you have questions, it looks like our Q&A is probably going to be short and our panel discussion is going to be short. So if you have questions, go ahead and ask those questions in the chat. And for the Microsoft team members, if you can kind of read those questions in the chat and engage the candidates and help answer some of those questions. But let me ask you another quick question before you go, Joey. Tell me, what is it that you like most about working for Microsoft for you personally?
I like the technology. If we really, that's my first story. If you really have a small thing, from the production, from the platform, or the business metrics, you know that how the things are important. From the engineers, I like the challenges on that front. So that's why I stay here for 13 years. I try every day, I made different challenges. I have to either I see a very tricky memory leak I need to fix, or I need to, customers has a requirement saying that, oh, my model is too big. How can But the gain is so huge. How can I ship to customers? The platform will magically make it happen. So that's the fundamentals things every day I enjoy.
Nice. Thank you. So with that, I'm going to thank you for your sharing your time and your experiences. If you hang on, we'll have a brief panel discussion after our next speaker. But with that, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our next speaker. So thank you, Joey.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me change the spotlight real fast and introduce our next speaker. So our next speaker is Joel Cifuentes, Principal Program Manager, Lead Content Services. So Joel, if you're ready.
Hey, how are you guys doing? I'm ready. So my name is Joel Cifuentes. I'm originally from Mexico, from the north part, Monclova, Coahuila, which is pretty close to Texas. I went to college in Mexico, actually, at ITESM Campus Monterrey. And actually, I'm not a 13-year veteran. I'm a 23-year veteran. I started here in 1997. In fact, I was one of the first Mexicans to come to Microsoft as a full-time back in 97. So it's going to be 24 years in August. And as you can see, originally in Mexico, I worked for a few months as a software development engineer. And then I came here as a software test engineer. And then I became a test lead. I became a test manager, which means managing leads who were managing other testers. Then I became a software design engineer, writing code for quality purposes. And then I became a program manager, which is what I'm right now. Then I became a program manager lead. So I've been all around. And out of my 24 years on Microsoft, probably 22 of them, I have spent time recruiting. In Mexico, I love recruiting. So I've traveled to Mexico quite a bit to bring people from Mexico and Latin America, actually, to the United States. Actually, on Friday, in a couple of days, I'm going to be interviewing people from South America who want to become full-timers. I interview both software design engineers and program managers. In the past, I used to interview testers as well. So I've done that. And I also done a lot of interviewing and participating in a lot of events, recruiting in California, in Texas, all over the United States. Specifically in events like this, where we are, trying to recruit minorities, people who we know have the talent. It's just sometimes hard to get to, or they don't know about these opportunities, right? When I came to Microsoft, I came really kind of like by chance, and we realized that Microsoft did not have a hiring program south of the border at all. So in some cases, they didn't even know what schools or universities there were over there. And so we kind of like helped them, teach them. We made the connections, and actually we were the ones who traveled there. And then we implemented the program to go there. We trained the interviewers to the point where we were scheduling trips to go visit 20 plus universities in Mexico, Latin America, and even in the Caribbean. So I'm actually very proud of that, and always looking forward to help people. I'm going to keep this super fast so we can have time for questions. Here, as you can see, I've done a lot of stuff. I've been on WebXT for some time. I've been at the test lead and test manager for weather, for news and feeds. I was the test manager worldwide for MSN.com. I don't know if people in the audience know what MSN.com is. So I was the test manager for the quality part of MSN.com. And right now, I am the PM for news and feeds, specifically for ingestion. So every information that comes through our feeds, and then we give it to weather, to finance, to sports, to news. All those feeds come through our team, and we distribute them to all the 60 markets that MSN supports, all the markets that Bing supports, and all the markets that Windows supports. Some of those markets overlap, but in some markets we have offices, in some other markets we have partners, et cetera, et cetera. So we manage all that information that flows to some of the people that have spoken before me. With that, please feel free to start asking me questions, because I think that's what people want to hear from. Yeah.
Definitely. So I appreciate you taking the time, first of all, to share your experiences. So I'm curious, when you came into Microsoft, how did you get that first opportunity, and did you have to relocate from somewhere else to join Microsoft?
Yeah, I was living in Monterrey, Mexico, and the opportunity came because I attended a symposium, and one of the speakers came from Microsoft, and that speaker actually say, "Hey, I have some free time to do some interviews," and I was part of those interviews, and I made it. And actually, one thing I want to tell is I made it to Microsoft until my second try. The first time I applied, I didn't make it in 1995.
Okay.
But that helped me a lot to learn and to prepare better for my second chance.
Yeah.
And now I've been 24 years in the company.
Excellent.
And now I recruit people. And now I am a manager of managers. So one lesson here is to never give up, right? I mean, the idea is to plant the seed. So for all of those, 50 plus people that right now we have in the chat, is just apply, right? If Microsoft technology is your dream, you will get there. It might not be on the first chance,
right?
But we'll come back and get you. That's the most important thing. Do not give up. Always stay in touch. That's what LinkedIn is for. That's why online learning is for. To keep growing, have a mentor. Have a point of contact in the industry, and you'll make it. If your passion is so big and your desire to be there is big, you'll make it no matter what.
What was it like for you when you relocated? Are you currently in the Redmond area?
Yes, I work in the Redmond area, yes.
What was that like relocating from Mexico to Redmond?
It was very interesting because back in 1997, as I said, there were only like 5-6 Mexicans at Microsoft. We all lived together, like in the same house.
Wow.
Because we didn't know each other, right? Like we barely knew where to buy food, like the kind of stuff that we like. Or if somebody went to Mexico, they will bring groceries from there or stuff like that, right? I mean, we didn't have Amazon at that time, or anything like that. So it was hard being far from the country, but at the same time we were living our dreams.
Yeah.
And we were very, very hard. I think Brian mentioned back then. I was able to know Bill Gates because he was the chairman of Microsoft, and Microsoft was a different company. It was a know-it-all company. Now it's completely different. It's a get to learn, grow mindset company. And this is something I love because we've been there. We were there where we were supposed to know it all, supposedly.
Mm-hmm.
But I love the new philosophy.
Yes.
Where you have the chance to learn, you have the chance to try new things, where not only what matters in the company is what you know, but how you help others and also how you use the help from others.
Yeah.
And that's why I've been in the company for 24 years. Because you rarely see these opportunities and this mentality and in companies around the globe. Yeah.
Excellent. So with that, let me invite our other panelists to turn on your video, and we'll take a couple of questions from our candidates. I actually see a question, so let me turn off the spotlight real quick. So one of the questions that I saw, and then I'll pose this and allow anyone that feels comfortable answering. The question is around tech screens. So what are the tech screens or as a part of the interview process? What are those like, not only for software engineers, but also if you're a data science professional?
I can take part of the answer.
Yeah.
I mean, I do a lot of tech screens. It's important to be prepared. It's important to be really good with solving problems, algos, understanding how a problem can be broken down into smaller pieces. And I'm talking more specifically about software development engineers. Probably somebody else with applied scientist background can give their opinion. But as a developer, we really want you to be proficient with technology, that you can learn from your interview, that your problem-solving skills have been, to a certain degree, trained, and they can be trained by your projects in school, by other experience, but also there are books that teach you how to analyze things. We don't expect people to be born and learn how to solve problems, but we do expect people who have done their homework to be ready for a technical interview. There are many websites out there. There are many books out there. If you're ready, if you can handle those problems, you're very likely to succeed in a screening interview. Coding, elegance, speed, efficiency, being able to detect your own mistakes in your code and fix them. It's something that I look for always.
Excellent. So I'm going to default this next question to Brian, but if anyone else wants to chime in with some experiences. So I like to sort of weave in some current events. So within the web experiences and technology team, have there been challenges or changes to the way that you work or problems that you have to solve once, COVID-19 hit, last year? What were some of the challenges or problems that came up that you guys had to solve as a team?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I can speak about it for me personally, but I also feel like I have some perspectives that I've heard from the team. I mean, clearly us all being removed from the same office and not being able to, walk down the hall and walk in somebody's door and, whiteboard something for 2 minutes and arrive at a solution, which is great, right? I love doing that. Like you walk in someone's office, you're like, hey, I was thinking about that problem. We could do this. And so, and then it's like, no, but what if we did this? And you solve it. Now that's a meeting. Now that's like, okay, I have to schedule a meeting and I have to like set up 30 minutes or whatever it is. That was one of the challenges for people. The other aspect of it is because you're having so many of these meetings, you could sort of turn into sort of a day of meetings and sort of, we developed a quick respect for sort of making sure that meetings didn't fill the whole hour or the whole half an hour. Just so, simple things like having a bio break or getting a cup of coffee was an easy thing. Yep. Those are just some of the fundamentals. But what I will say, though, is that because we're a global organization, because our team is actually working globally, we were kind of used to working with some of our teams remotely or over Teams anyway. And that really didn't change. So what I was actually amazed by was the resilience of the teams to sort of bring their best through that mode and still sort of have the discussions and amazingly, and Gang mentioned this as well, is sort of the respect that people have in those contexts. Like you could imagine that it'd be like, oh, is it hard to get a word in edgewise? But no, everybody's actually really respectful and sort of stepping back and, oh, Will, I think I heard you say a word, why don't you talk? Like that's the culture now, and it's really great. Yep. So I think all of those kind of come together to overcome some of those challenges that we're seeing. But it's certainly been a different world, and I'm looking forward to being back in the office with all of my buddies, as I'm sure many of the others on the call are as well.
Excellent. So I'm going to do something a little bit different as we sort of close out the evening. But before we go, I'm going to share the next steps. But even before that, I want to give everybody a chance. If I'm a candidate and I would love to come and work for Microsoft, the question I would have from each of you individually, and I'll ask each of you one by one, what would be the advice you would give me as a candidate if I want to get my foot in the door and do well at Microsoft? What piece of advice would you give me? So I'll start with Gang Li.
Sorry, I was muted. So if I understand your question is like, Will, are you asking me what advice I would give the candidate? And so if they are interested to join us.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. So I think I would say just, I would say, I don't have a great answer on that, but I think I want to try to keep simple as like just relax. And also, don't overthink and be the best of yourself. I think because I was reading like the chat and I saw people asking a lot of specific great questions about like how Microsoft think about this technology, that technology. I would say like we as Brian and all the other people said, like growth mindset is a key thing that our company is embracing. So we really when we evaluate people, like we really look at the potential, the opportunities, like this how this person can grow and become successful in this company with such a broad selection of technology and products. So I think, just, be relaxed. And plus, like, I believe, our company has been like driving a feature to ask everybody try to be the authentic self. So be authentic yourself and show the best, which is probably the best yourself. And we're interested to see.
Excellent. Michael, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would echo the bring your true self to the interview process. If you're not familiar with something, like let us know, right? Don't try and fake it. That would probably be the worst choice you can make. A lot of our staffers quite deep in areas, and if you happen to try and fake the thing that they're really good at, they will find it very quickly. The other thing is like a lot of the interview process itself, I know, is a little bit unnatural, right? You're just not used to being sort of grilled like that, like in your daily interactions, right? And so if there's one thing I would tell people is, if you can at all do it, practice being in that situation so that it's not as unnatural for you. Like, it will still be unnatural, but you've gotten past some of the nerves of just like, oh, like that situation it's just different. So if you can practice with a friend or something like that, I think you asked me like, how did I? Like, this is one thing I did when I interviewed is I had my buddies. I said, all right, give me questions, like pretend I'm your candidate, right? And the first couple of those were super rough, boy oh boy, right? But if you can get past that, I think that'll help just that process. You'll not be worried about like, am I saying that, like, you won't be worried about that. You'll be worried about the thing that we're asking, right? And the last thing I say is, especially for the problems and problem solving, get any solution you can, no matter how simple or trivial it is. Get that out there. We can always work on making it better. And our goal, in fact, is to work with you during the interview process to help you get it better. But a lot of times I see people trying to give me the perfect solution, and they just don't give me any solution. And unfortunately, then I can't do anything with it.
Excellent. So prepare.
Prepare.
Joe V, thank you, Michael. Joe V, what would be your advice for candidates? I think you're.
I try to unmute myself. I have basically two suggestions. One is role capability. I always, in the debrief of the interview loops, I always ask everybody, what's the role capability of this guy? From the fundamentals, from algorithm. You need to establish that. You should tell, try to show your role capability to the interviewers. I think the interviewers is really trained to try to extract this information from you. That's the intention. So the second thing is, you should not really silent. You should be exploratory. We ask a lot of open questions. You need to ask exploratory questions. Try to narrow down the question to a really specific one. Don't be shy in talking, in communication. That's the key for the interview. So that's the two suggestions I would give. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Joey. Mr. Cifuentes.
Yes. Recently, I read an article where somebody asked a manager, hey, how do you motivate your people? And what he said is, well, I try to hire motivated people already, so I don't have to motivate them later. So why am I saying this? Because if you want to come to Microsoft or to any company, but to Microsoft, I'm hoping that you're already motivated to work with us, that you is your passion to work in technology, and that you at some point said, hey, I like Microsoft, I want to be there. Right? And if you believe, whether you think you can make it or not, you're right. If you believe you can make it, you're going to make it.
Yeah.
If you believe you're not going to make it, then you won't. So keep that mindset that you can make it. Let's forget about the technical stuff. I mean, everybody else already said, hey, let's do this from a technical perspective, but everything starts with your mind. And then with that motivation, reading about coding or learning a new language is going to come naturally. Right. I think Michael's also said, I remember when I became a Microsoft employee, I applied for a testing position. You don't go to school to learn how to be a tester, and especially not in Mexico, right? So when I failed, quote unquote, failed my first interview, for the next year, everything that I would see, like a pen, glasses, a mouse, I would see, how will I test this?
Yeah.
Their conditioning in a car, how will I start living with that mindset?
Wow.
Right. And I went from not being accepted a year before to getting all hires in my next interview, and having the chance to even I pick what team I wanted to work for, right? So that would be
Excellent.
my advice.
So Brian, I'll give you the last word.
Thanks. I'm honored. All of these suggestions were fantastic, by the way. I really love what everyone was bringing. I just want to add a couple more. One is, in the interview, take your time. It's a function of being yourself, but I see people rushing. It's okay to stop and pause and think. When you're asking all those questions and sort of, you're drilling down. The practicing advice that Michael gave you is a great one. The only thing I'd add to that is I tell people to think about some of the questions you might get and write down the answers, because it makes you think. It makes you really get specific about what it is you want to say. And then the last piece of advice I'd have for you is, if you're going into a particular industry, know what's going on in that industry, because you probably get questions related to that, right? XYZ company is doing this, or, ABC company is doing that. What do you think about that? Because I find the people that know what's going on in their industry are passionate about it, and they demonstrate a natural curiosity. And that's, to everybody's point here, that's all that anybody's trying to figure out. Nobody's going to try and trick you in the interview. They actually want you to succeed, because we want to hire great people. So just come and be yourself and demonstrate your curiosity, and we'll be here to talk to you, and we'll enjoy it. So thanks, Will, for the opportunity.
Excellent. So thank you to the Microsoft team for taking off the time to share your experiences, to help prepare our candidates for potential interviews. And with that, let me talk quickly. I know we're a couple minutes over time. So keep an eye on your email, because I will send a recap of the event, and I will send the instructions for the interview interest form. So with that interview interest form, you'll be able to fill it out. It's a simple form. It's not like a long application or anything. It's a simple form for you to say that you want to land an interview. Then I will share your resume. So if you haven't sent over your resume to us already, I'll have a link for you to be able to do that. But anyway, you'll submit that interview interest form. Jesse and his team will receive that. Take a look at your LinkedIn profile, take a look at your resume, and then set up a phone screen and then a potential interview. Like I said, these are real opportunities. So again, thank you to the Microsoft WebXT team for taking the time out to share. And thank you to all of the candidates for attending this event, because without you guys coming to these events, we couldn't have these events, right? So thank you to all of the candidates, and best of luck to you, and keep an eye on your email. Okay, so with that, just like to say thank you to everyone. Appreciate it. Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you, Will. Thank you, the organizers. Awesome job. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Will. Thanks, every speaker. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.